And we're back, and Hailey, we're going to do our best to get through this segment. Hailey's stomach
just get through it.
Is making all kinds of weird noises.
It's like a gurgle fest over here.
Yeah, it's like trying to communicate with us, and I'm not picking up the language or the dialect, so I'm not sure what it's saying.
And your stomach hasn't chimed in yet either, which is concerning.
I am the perfect human. I am not doing all the things you're doing.
No, but normally your stomach does talk back.
I know. Normally it does. It's not this time.
It's a little rude.
I'm hoping that the microphones pick it up and other people get to experience it.
Yeah, I really hope for that, Dan.
If you hear something weird, that's just Hailey's stomach. And that gives me carte blanche to do whatever I want, noise-wise. We'll see how I take advantage of that or don't.
Appreciate it.
Let's talk about your ceiling, right?
Yes.
This is something that I guess I'm just curious. How did you stumble onto this product? You probably should explain the product just a little bit.
Yeah, I'll give
And then let's talk about your project. And then we'll talk about all the different things people could do with it.
I'm going to set up the situation.
Sure, set it up. You only have a few minutes. Set it up fast, Hailey.
Dan. You're not helping.
I know.
All right. So if you've been listening to the show on a regular basis, you've probably heard me talk about the garage that I've been renovating. I'm turning it into an art studio.
Right.
And it's no longer a garage at this point.
But it's not yet an art studio.
Yes. There are walls up where there were doors. I've added a normal, entry door. It's all insulated. And now there's a ceiling and lights installed. So the only thing I have left at this point is the drywall.
Okay. So you've come
Very
a long way.
Yes.
And
but I was really nervous about the ceiling.
How come?
From the very beginning.
Why?
Honestly, I'm not an experienced drywaller. So the idea of doing a ceiling is really intimidating. Even doing the walls is really intimidating, but that especially.
No, ceiling with drywall is very complicated if you don't do that on a regular basis. If you don't have all the equipment, now you could potentially rent.
I could maybe rent it or something like that.
But still, mudding it all in, making it look nice.
Plus, it's like a 100-year-old garage, and it's detached, so it's its own building. And the rafters don't instill a whole lot of confidence in me. They look underbuilt.
All right.
Like, they're not today's standard. And so the idea of also putting that much weight on the ceiling seemed kind of problematic. Like, I'm asking for trouble.
All right.
So I knew I needed something kind of lightweight. And then the other part of it was like budget, and I wanted to be able to do something that I could kind of work on by myself when I needed to.
I think that's interesting. Why is that?
Honestly, I don't want to wait for people.
Oh.
Like, if I want to work on it, I don't want to have to wait around until someone can help me.
Sure.
I get it. I'm tied to Jordan's schedule. Like, when he's home from work, then, okay, finally I can work on it if he's up for it, Like, it's a lot depending on
I completely
get
it. I pulled a toilet out because I was getting ready to do a floor and stuff like that, and I had help all lined up, but I decided 11:30 one night, this makes perfect sense. Let's pull the toilet up, and strangely, my help didn't want to come until the following morning when we had arranged it. So I did it anyway, but yes, I get it. You like to work on your own. You like to have your own schedule and be able to do it as you need.
So those were like kind of the constraints, right? It needed to be lightweight, easy to install overhead, something that I could do by myself, budget friendly. Sure. And I started researching.
So with all of that, you stumble into
Armstrong's flush mount ceiling plank system.
Okay, so explain what that looks like as best you can.
This particular system, it's called Country Classic, essentially looks like white shiplap up on the ceiling. However, it's not wood. It's made of like a mineral composite. So essentially the same stuff that a lot of the drop ceiling tiles are made out of. It's really lightweight, brittle kind of. It's got enough flexibility to it that it's fairly easy to install still.
Now, it had an embossed texture on the surface, and you thought that looked
like oak
pretty
or
decent,
something.
like
oak.
Oak.
Exactly.
And it's white. Now, you can get multiple options. I believe you went with the Country Classic. There's another line that Armstrong makes that's longer planks. Those are about 7 foot long and 5 inches wide.
Right. Mine are 6 inches wide, and they're 4 feet long.
They're more like the Dan version of a plank, and the other ones are the taller, thinner
and
version.
Those ones are more expensive. So I went with the Country Classic.
Yeah.
because the length of the panel doesn't really, it didn't really make that much of a difference in the pictures I was seeing. So there's no reason for me to pay more money.
And you went with the white version.
Yes.
Because there is a wood look.
That looks like wood.
Kind of.
Nothing
you weren't
ever
a fan
looks
of that one.
like wood when it's not wood.
Right. That's true.
Yeah. So this I went with also because I wasn't really sure what color I'd want it to be, and they are paintable still.
Okay.
So
now we
that's an
should
option.
stress, because I want to make sure
warranty.
we follow all the rules here. Armstrong says you can paint them, but it will void the warranty.
Right.
So you got to kind of do what you want with that one. All right. So we've got all of that going on. You stumble onto this tile, about $4 a square foot, something like that.
Yeah. So like fairly within budget.
All right. So you set it up. We've got to take a break because we spent so much time talking about white after Labor Day.
In my stomach.
Really important. And your stomach. I did have to take time to talk about that. So we're going to take a break. After the news, we're going to be talking about your experience installing it and all the different areas we could use it and all the different problems it can solve.
Yes.
That's all just ahead. Stay tuned. And we're back, and we are talking about Hailey's ceiling in her garage/studio. No longer a garage.
Right.
Not quite yet a studio. It's on its way.
Just needs drywall.
Just needs drywall, and it will be pristine and perfect, just the way Hailey wants it. Now, you talked about a ceiling. You needed something up there, and you could have gone with drywall. Would have probably been more inexpensive, but you were worried about the weight of it and finishing it.
It was
and all of that.
intimidating for a lot of reasons.
So you look at this particular product that we're talking about, Armstrong, what is it? Flush mount ceiling wood look planks.
Right.
All right. So it's the one that you went with was Country Classic.
There's also
4 foot long
Woodhaven.
and about 6 inches wide for the planks.
Yep.
Woodhaven is another version. That one's important. We'll talk about why you would want one or the other later.
But it looks like white wood.
Right. Just looks like white wood. It's got an embossed texture to it.
It's actually really convincing, I think.
Okay. So you really liked it. It's a tongue and groove, snap together system.
Right.
But you've got to mount it. Let's talk about the installation. And what were you putting it on?
So the way that the ceiling is, you've got the normal ceiling rafters that are supporting the roof, right? But across those, at some point, I think they were probably storing things up in the ceiling rafters. So they made like this grid system out of 2x4s that ran between the ceiling rafters.
Okay.
I don't think that they were there for any like structural purpose. I think it was really just there to like,
Maybe they like the look of 2x4s. Never know.
That's possible, Dan. That's possible.
So it could be one or the other. Either some kind of storage system or it could just be some strange aesthetic.
Yep.
But either way, those are there.
It's not the most even, too, so I was worried about that from the very beginning with whatever I went with. It needed to be something that could bridge some gaps. And also, I ended up, we'll get there.
Okay.
I'm going to back up.
I'm just along for the ride.
So essentially what you're doing, if you're going to do like the normal system that they sell, is you're going to get these brackets and install those into the ceiling.
So they're like a rail almost, right?
Right, exactly. So like they're 8 feet long, super thin metal, and you just screw those perpendicular the whole length of the room to the ceiling rafters.
Okay. And there's instructions.
Yes.
And we'll link to those. We're not here to give you the how-to of literal details on that.
Complicated in this form.
On the radio, it's
on
complicated.
Radio.
Doing it was simple.
Yes.
So you attach this rail.
Yes.
And you do that every couple of feet or so, right?
I think I did it like every 18 inches or so.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then you've got these little bracket clip type things.
Yeah,
right?
little clips that clip onto those rails that I've now installed onto the ceiling. The first row, however, of
your
the
planks.
ceiling panels, you actually have to screw into that rail system.
Okay.
So I used number 6 screws, screw in that first row of ceiling panels, and then the next row now has something stable to tongue and groove into.
Sure.
Right? And that's when the clips start coming into play. So now that I've got this ceiling panel up, I clip the little guy onto the rail, slide it into the tongue, the groove.
Yeah, we'll put a video in the show notes so you can see what we're talking about. It's a really slick installation system.
It's so easy.
Yeah, so you're just taking each plank, putting it in place, and then it locks into one half, like you're saying, the tongue and groove part of one, and then these little clips slide in to the other side, and then the next piece comes on. You work your way all the way across a room, and then go to the next row.
Yes.
And when you get to the end, you're making cuts and stuff to make it fit. Now, you want to create, I think you've got to have like a 3/4 inch gap around the room, the perimeter of the room.
Right, yeah.
So
like that first
and
row of panels, I'm bumping out from the edge of the wall like about 3/4 of an inch, and then doing the same thing on the other ends.
All right. And you cover that with crown molding when you're done. So you don't see any of those gaps or anything like that.
Never see the gap, but you do that, like you said, for expansion and contraction over time, and just making sure that there's room for that movement.
Yeah. So you take your plank, you get to the end, a wall where you've got to cut it. Maybe it's only 2 foot. You take that cut off scrap and you start the next row with that on the other side. So you've got the staggered look.
Right. You don't want all the seams to line up with each other. It would look a little awkward, probably.
Yeah, unless you really like order.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that would be good.
Could be a look.
Yeah. No, I've seen a floor where somebody did that. I forget where.
Like a wood floor.
Yeah. Well, it was a laminate floor, but they took all the planks and all in a row. Lined them up. Not a good look. We don't advocate for that.
No.
So anyway, really easy install. We could go on and on trying to talk about the install, but I think we'll lose people. The point is that it was very simple, and you were installing over just open rafter areas, right?
Right, exactly. And the garage is about 400 square feet, so it's a good amount of space, and I was doing that by myself. I needed help with the first row of panels. I will say that. I can't really hold the panel in place and screw it at the same time, so you do need an extra pair of hands for that part.
So you are going to need a friend.
But everything else I was able to do by myself.
Well, look at that. So you only need a friend for a little bit, and you can send them on their way and operate on your own the way it was meant to be. So anyway, relatively inexpensive, about $4 a square foot or so. You don't need a whole lot of anything else. You just need that bracket system, and all of that comes. We'll put a link in the show notes so you can check it out.
And you'll need a drill, like as far as tools go. You want a drill.
Sure.
You want a little chop saw probably, although you could cut these tiles with, a handsaw. It's not difficult material to cut through.
You score them with a razor knife
messy,
and all of those things. That's one install. That's over an open rafter kind of a system.
Right.
But this has so many different applications.
Yes. And this is kind of the cool part.
Yeah, that's the thing that we really wanted to get to maybe help anybody out there. Let's say you've got a popcorn ceiling. You absolutely hate the popcorn ceiling look. Or a really textured ceiling that you just don't want to deal with anymore.
Right.
This can be installed right over that. Again, you would just find the studs and all of that, and you'd mount these rails that we talked about, and then the clip system just comes into play there. And really, the planks themselves are what? Half an inch thick, maybe?
Yeah, maybe.
And then with the rail and all of that, what are you losing? About an inch?
Like an inch and a half.
Okay, an inch and a half of height is all you're going to lose with this. So, like we said, it's called flush mount, and that's the reason. Why. It really, really comes in nice in that regard. So, textured ceilings that you don't want to scrape all clean and all of that. Now, I think on the instructions, they talk about wherever you run these rails, they recommend that you scrape the popcorn texture off. We think you could get by without.
Yeah, I don't think that's necessary.
Right. If you've got a motorcycle in your garage and you feel rebellious, maybe you don't even need to scrape. Who knows?
Yeah.
But very easy way to cover those ceilings, because scraping off a popcorn texture and trying to move on can be a lot of work. I mean, it's a huge process, messy process.
Yeah, exactly.
Super easy. I love that.
And it just updates it.
Right. Great look. Way better than a drop ceiling.
Right.
But even if you've got damaged drywall up there or anything like that.
Plaster,
again, super easy way to get a nice, consistent look. All right. What about a drop ceiling?
Yes, this is what you're so excited about.
I am really excited about this because I've got a drop ceiling in my basement, and I really honestly didn't mind it until Hailey saw it and pointed out how bad that was. I really appreciate that because now I can't see it without realizing how bad it is. Yeah, thank you. But I've been trying to figure out what can I do. I started buying new ceiling tiles to drop in place.
Sure.
And yes, I could go get the little brackets and turn it into a 2x2 square drop
Which
ceiling.
Is a little bit
more it's updated. A little better.
Yeah.
But with the Woodhaven planks from Armstrong.
Yeah,
these
so
are the
essentially
longer
the
ones.
same thing, just longer.
Right, longer, and they're 5 inches wide instead of the 6 inches wide. But with these, you can actually get little brackets that snap onto the grid that's already there on my drop ceiling.
Right.
So all I would need to do is get all the panels out of that drop ceiling. Now I've got the grid exposed. I just get these brackets, clip them onto there, and the install process is basically what Hailey described. That first row goes in, and it's got to be attached on one end to the bracket system, that grid system that's up there. And then the next row just clips into these clips that slide around on your drop ceiling grid. It's so simple, so quick, so
Everything
easy.
just tongue and grooves together. Like all of the ends, all of the edges, they just fit together. So there's no seams or anything. It's really a nice look.
Yeah. So it's some way for me to get this drop ceiling completely overhauled, a completely different look. So I'll have a nice wood plank look on the ceiling. I'll get new lights because right now I've got the big fluorescent lights.
Yeah.
The 2x4 square with the clear plastic
that,
screen.
Like yellows over time.
Well,
and
I don't
all
mind.
The bugs
I don't mind the yellow. It's the bugs.
Yeah.
It's like spiders love to eat right above that. So yeah, we just watch and see how many carcasses appear up in there. And then when we try to take it down, it normally cracks because it's so old, and then all the bodies fall out onto your face.
Gross.
Yeah. And my mouth's always open. Always open. Anyway, I can cover over that. My son, the electrician, he's already come and talked about these little wafer lights that I can put in there. He's got a plan.
And this stuff is really easy to cut around lights for, too.
Yeah, I am super excited. $4 a square foot and some change, somewhere in that range. It's not completely, it's not free. It's not like I want it. And I just have free money to spend. But it is a reasonable way to really, really update that room.
Right. I mean, like within a week, you could have a completely different look, and it's really not that much work. I mean, it's time invested for sure, but it's extremely simple to do.
Yeah, definitely some pros, a lot of pros. It's, like we said, a great way to update a ceiling with something that you don't like on it, like the popcorn textures, damaged drywall, drop ceilings. Really great way to update those. It's lightweight. Easy to work with on your own, easy to do on your own, easy to score, easy to cut, easy to work with. Can be a little fragile. Keep that in mind.
Yeah, and I guess like a tip that I'd want to give out is that when you're taking these out of the box, like inspect each panel a little bit, because some will have like a damaged corner, and that'll affect the look of everything eventually. They won't snap in perfectly, things like that. What I have noticed is that if I take one out of the box and just like run my thumb through that tongue and groove section so that everything is lined up and get it nice and set to go into the next panel, it's a lot easier. That way I'm not up in the ceiling trying to force them to go together and ultimately bending the ceiling panel and ruining it.
Yeah, use some care when installing them. But really easy to work with, very low profile. So you're not really losing a lot of height. That's going to matter. Well, it matters and doesn't matter for my ceiling. My ceiling in the basement is already low, so I don't really want to lose too much more.
No.
But fortunately, we are very low people.
You're gifted.
So we can adapt to that. A lot of pros. Couple of limitations and some cons that we want to point out. It can't be easily removed. So once it's up, if you need access, to different parts of that ceiling,
you're cutting it away.
Yeah, it's not going to be easy. It's not made to just drop out like a ceiling panel would. It's not meant for any space with moisture. So if you've got a half a bath even, it's not meant for that. It's not meant for anywhere outdoors. Haley's rolling the dice. We think the garage is fine because it's
a finished space at this point, and it's humidity controlled, so I'm really not concerned. But yeah, if something went wrong, I would definitely update people. I did read one negative review as I was doing my research, and someone had installed these panels in like a 3 Seasons room that wasn't heated or cooled, and she did have too much humidity ultimately, and the panels did warp.
Yeah.
So
think about that. Be aware of that. And they can be painted with water-based paints. But again, we mentioned that earlier. Armstrong says that voids the warranty. Now, the reasons, does it make sense? Does it not make sense? I get what they're saying. It's, they say it will void the, potentially the fire-resistant nature of it.
Yeah, you're altering the panel, so now it's not up to them.
I get why they're saying that, but really it's not because of any reason that the paint's going to have a problem with it. A water-based paint would be just fine up there if you don't like the white or you want to change it down the road. I'm really excited about it. Have hated that basement ever since you told me how bad it was.
Now I feel bad.
Well, you should. It's going to cost me a lot of money to fix, and it's just been a lot of stress. But now
I've given you the solution.
You've given me the solution, so I appreciate that.
It kind of balances out the karma a little.
No, it's great. I honestly, I've never loved the drop ceiling. I'll be happy to update it in a very inexpensive manner.
No, I'm really happy with the way it turned out.
We'll put links in the show notes. You can check out some of Haley's project and how it's turned out. We'll keep you updated if there's ever an issue with the product, but definitely look into it. If you've got a drop ceiling in your basement, kind of sick of it.
Really easy way to update it.
Yeah, think of all the people now that we've made feel bad about their basements. Anyway, we're going to have to just move on. And when we're back, we're going to be talking about a surprise paint topic. We don't even know what it is yet. We're going to pull one out of a hat.
And go.
And we're going to go. That's all just ahead. Stay tuned.